Hello and welcome to Feedback for the week of October 26th. It's Halloween week, so boo, boogie, boogie, scary times. All right, that's out of the way. Joining us today, we have games editorial specialist from G4TV.com, Brian Leahy, and fresh from a trip up to the wilds of Seattle and Valve, Abby Happy, editorial manager from XPlay, and hopefully someone that needs no introduction, Morgan Webb.
Hello.
Welcome to everyone. Thank you for coming. So this has actually been slightly a news-oriented week as opposed to some of the weeks that have preceded where we are really milking that stone and cow quite dry. So we're going to get going with it because one of them is quite discussable. Brian, hit us.
Yeah, it was a big day. There was some footage that leaked from a French version of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 showing that you are actually playing as a terrorist sort of massacring civilians in an airport.
Yeah,
pretty huge reveal.
It is pretty brutal footage. I mean, and obviously it's leaked. They pulled it down. They've been doing everything, but you can still find it out there.
It seems to still pop up here and there, but it is a little bit tough. And once it's up there and Activision gets wind of it, it's gone. This hasn't gotten the negative reaction we thought it might get immediately, but that does seem to be kind of out there on the horizon.
Well, I mean, Fox News doesn't read NeoGAF, so they probably haven't seen it yet, but it'll hit and it'll be big. I mean, this could probably be bigger than the Mass Effect sex controversy stuff. Playing as a terrorist is a pretty huge deal.
Now, I think one of the big things, and Abby, I know this is probably very hard for you because you've been trying to keep yourself like inside of a bubble with anything that has to do with Modern Warfare 2.
I've been trying so hard not to listen.
But as someone who is a huge fan of all the games that IW has done, I think the one thing that strikes me is they've always been so reverent to the armed services that to think that somehow they've done this 180-degree turn with this segment in the game strikes me as rather surprising.
Yeah, I don't think that it's going to be as shocking. People make it into something shocking. I don't necessarily think that they've treated it in a way that's inappropriate. I think we'll know for sure soon.
Yes.
But, because right now it's just hearsay, people that saw the video, and we don't have any context for it, really. Activision did come out and say that, you can choose whether to see it or not. It's a skippable cutscene.
And it comes with a warning. Like, more or less the choice is something disturbing is coming.
There's definitely a warning attached to it. I don't think that they've done a 180 and done something hugely inappropriate. But as I said, we don't have the context for it yet. We'll find out.
And then they did say that they were definitely going to do it because they're trying to elicit an emotional reaction from the player, and that you really want to get these terrorists because you have you're really upset about what you saw and what you did.
Right, and
they're trying to get an emotional reaction from you, so they are trying to use something that's in the news and people are afraid of to elicit emotional reaction. So whether are they doing it for the right reasons, the wrong reasons?
I mean, because they did that in the first game too. When all of a sudden you're there and the bomb goes off and you die. And sorry if there's spoilers, but the game came out a while ago.
It's been 2 years, kiddos.
By now, and you die. It was one of the first moments in a game where I was like, oh my god. And it kind of just gave you that impetus to get through the rest of it, and that emotional point where you wanted to go and kill everybody responsible for it. And I can see them finding a new tack to take with this one. You can't use the same trick twice, really. We've seen it. I'm going to wait. I'm going to play the game. I'm not skipping any cutscenes, and we'll see how they manage to integrate it.
I think what this addresses is this problem that comes up when games try to move out of the sheer fun zone of, hey, it's fun to kill terrorists, fun to kill aliens, and try to do something that does attempt to elicit another response. It seems in many people's minds it's something that you would easily see in a movie and even a television show like 24, and have probably read in many a novel for the past few centuries, that when it comes to a game, I don't know if it's the interactivity or because it's called a game, it suddenly seems so inappropriate in the mainstream media's eyes. I mean, is this something that games can grow out of, Brian?
I think so. The more agency you give to the player in something like this, where it is interactive, it's not just a cutscene. From the footage, you see the player actually hesitates before, he doesn't know what's coming, and he walks in, comes out of this elevator, and the AI, other terrorists start firing on the crowd, and he pauses before firing on the crowd, but he does it. And that's the sort of effect that I think Infinity Ward is going for. But again, like Abby said, we have no context. Like, we don't know if you're playing as an undercover, someone who's infiltrated the cell or something like that. It could be something you have to do, or you're just playing as a terrorist.
I think the other interesting thing to note is that, this isn't necessarily the first game where you play a terrorist organization. It's just the first one that we have a context for that's very personal.
And it's a very high-profile game,
yes,
so it's going to get a lot of attention.
And there's lots of terrible things that you do in lots of games. It's just once you put that in the context of, wow, this is something that our country has been dealing with, and this is something that, is in our minds and is a fear for, so many people, here that, that suddenly you reconsider and you think about what you're doing within video games, and that's probably what they wanted, to make you actually think.
But I think it's really unfortunate that people still think video games are for children, and so when Fox News inevitably is going to get a hold of this and inevitably call up somebody and say, like, but children are going to be affected. I mean, it is a frustrating reality, but I think as more gamers start working at Fox News and start working at CNN and start entering sort of this public forum, then that problem is going to taper off. But it's going to be a problem for a little while.
But I mean, I was always astonished that last year when GTA 4 came out, I was expecting something at least commensurate with when GTA 3 came out. Maybe not as bad as when Hot Coffee was revealed, but that really didn't seem to have as much of a blip on the radar as we'd once thought. In fact, I think Mass Effect's bogus sex scene was actually a bigger deal. But this one seems to be rubbing people kind of in a more raw way, at least on the gaming sites. People have already gotten very, very indignant. They're already having sort of a negative opinion. I am a little bit shocked that gamers, who are always so sensitive to that specter of censorship or the mainstream media mischaracterizing them, are themselves already making snap judgments. I mean, do you think this is indicative of the majority of gamers out there, or just the ones that want to go on the message board and have seem to be upset?
It's indicative of the internet. I mean, you put anything out there that has any sort of controversy, and everybody has an opinion and wants to share it on their blog, Twitter, just forums, anywhere that they, can have an opinion about it. It's rampant right now. It's horrifying. I don't know if every gamer will have that attack. I'm sure everybody will have an opinion on it. Whether they choose to go spouting their mouth off about it is another thing.
I feel like a lot of gamers a lot of people who are going to buy this game are going to walk into the store and have never heard of this controversy.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure. I mean, not everybody watches the news, gaming news, like we do.
Totally.
And like people on NeoGAF do.
I just think people want to play the game, and it's something to talk about in the 2 weeks that we still wait for it.
Yeah, because we don't have any other games to play right now.
No.
Now, do you think, though, that in the build-up to the game, that this could have, I mean, like people always say, okay, bad news is still good news. In this case, if this thing does catch fire, could this become damaging to Activision? I mean, there was just a press release that was put out today that Walmart is doing their own campaign around the sale of Call of Duty. And I couldn't help but wonder, if this thing gets Steam prior to launch, would a very conservative retail outlet like Walmart suddenly start to get some cold feet?
Well, I think a potential issue is, like, if parents start hearing about this, they may be a little less likely about buying it for their 14-year-old kid for Christmas, which maybe they shouldn't have been doing anyway.
It is an M-rated game.
It is an M-rated game. But I think people have a weird perception of M-rated. They think maybe M-rated is really appropriate for 14 and up. I mean, people have some weird perceptions.
I think once Halo 3 got that M rating, I was like, okay, I don't even understand the criteria anymore for the ESRB.
Kids, don't tell your parents.
Well, I thought
you didn't listen to this podcast. You don't know.
I thought parents only cared about when sex was in games and violence was all good in this country. So maybe.
Yeah, well, obviously time will
it's
tell.
It's violence with that tact to
Yeah,
it,
no,
though.
it's-
I mean, sex, I think, will still always trump everything, but...
We are America. We make fun of the British about it, but really, it's more puritanical here. My last prediction on this is, I bet this thing gets its real steam during the Thanksgiving weekend when news is slow and this game has been in stores for a week and a half. With that, let's move on to our second story. Not as controversial.
Well, maybe, but unless you're, a rampant PS3 fanboy, it's pretty huge.
Yes, Then a Wind is controversial.
Yeah. So Netflix is going to be coming to the PlayStation 3 in November. For the short term, it will require a disc, a Blu-ray that you can get from Netflix. It will be free, but all of the library that's available to Xbox users and to Netflix users on their computers will now be available to stream on the PlayStation 3, including the HD content.
And I assume now the Sony movies that are not available through Netflix on the 360 might become available.
Yeah, we might get the Spider-Mans back,
Which would be, maybe other than Spider-Man 3, that actually makes me kind of happy.
Well, it's nice because, if you want to get Netflix on the Xbox, you have to pay for your gold membership. But you also don't have to have the highest level of Netflix subscription. On the PlayStation, you have to have the highest level unlimited.
No, it's
is it not?
you can still have the lowest one. That's why it's such a big deal.
Yeah.
Because
I thought it was the
PSN is
highest
free.
And the PSN is free, so then you're
yeah.
you're definitely going to be saving money that way. Although, like people who
If
I'm
you have an
guessing-
Xbox 360 and don't have Live Gold,
Right.
what are you
Why-
doing?
why-
I'm paying for it anyway, and I'm paying for Netflix anyway. On
Yeah.
the Xbox was just sort of like a happy marriage. But I can see if you didn't already purchase one of those things, it would be a high price point of entry. So
Yeah, and I think with, I mean, it's a good move for Sony, and it needed to be a while ago, but now with the next update coming with the Zune HD Marketplace with Instant On 1080p, which is going to vary the experience for buffering and things like that, and I still think it's a little too expensive. I know that when I've been checking on the preview, I'd go through the list and be like, okay, but is this on Netflix? Because I can watch it for free there. Or not free, but I already pay for it. So with Xbox launching that, you know, it's sort of this Sony is still a feature behind. Like they're catching up, but Microsoft is still leading by a feature and
But
sort of
that
dictating
catch-up is
the
important
progress.
too.
Yes.
You know,
But with the PSN, I mean, obviously, you know, one of the magic things about the Xbox 360 and Xbox Live is that it's just a very efficient, very user-friendly service, which is something that I can't say personally about PSN, which just seems to throw in these extra steps and, you know, moving around. Even with these new additions, that is getting them more up to speed with what Microsoft is doing with the architecture of both the PS3 and PSN. Is this really going to get the more casual consumer of the PS3? Are they going to have as easy a time?
I just feel like they're going to have a hard time with it because the PlayStation 3 does not do a very good job of letting you know what is available to use and how to use it. You open it up and you have a menu, and which is great. They don't try to throw advertisements in your face as soon as you turn your console on like the Xbox does. But on the other hand, you don't have any idea that now Netflix is maybe available for your PlayStation 3.
But once you actually get into the PlayStation Network store, I actually don't find it that off-putting. I think that they've made a few nice little tweaks to it. I don't actually find it that hard to navigate anymore, but it might be just getting there.
Because I have had a hard time finding things on there, and I've had a hard time buying things on there. So,
Well, again, Microsoft being one step ahead, I'd buy everything now for my Xbox on the website. You know, I'm no longer typing in redeemable codes on the, you know, on-screen keyboard. I just go to xbox.com, check out the marketplace, and the next time I turn on my Xbox, it's there.
That's true. That's been the
Yeah.
easiest way to get everything. That's all I've been using as well.
Well, one of the good things, I mean, I do think the timing of the Netflix announcement could not be better. Obviously, there's a wonderful amount of momentum behind Sony right now with the price drop that is at least about a month and a half ago definitely turned into a big spike in the sales of the PS3, and now they do suddenly have this bevy of strong content that's coming out and getting a lot of critical acclaim. And I think Uncharted 2, I haven't seen any sales figures yet, but if by the number of people playing it online is any indication, this thing is huge.
I know when my dad calls me and is like, "Hey, have you heard some buzz about this Sony PlayStation thing?"
Shark
Like,
Man.
I know it's big right now. You know?
All right, so we're going to move past Netflix, and we're actually, for the third story, we're going to go to Abby, because you're the one who got this story, and it's up on our website right now at g4tv.com.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Avatar awards are going to be implemented in Left 4 Dead 2. And they're cool. You can get Rochelle's shirt, her Depeche Mode shirt, the pink one from the game. You can get a couple Left 4 Dead shirts. You'll be able to get a health pack that you can put on the back of your character. And they're all earned like you would earn achievements, except they're kind of achievements with an added bonus
A slightly
prize.
more material quality, even though they're completely digital.
Which is great. And I feel like, and Valve is actually one of the first games to be implementing this. I know Explosion Man also has them integrated in the game. And you look at the Avatar store and you're like, well, I could buy stuff for Guitar Hero 5, for Halo, for a bunch of games. And maybe those were supposed to be, and they just couldn't get their act together, because we certainly haven't seen any movement in the Avatar award sector for a long time.
I think they were hoping that people would buy them. They're like, we'll throw them out there and charge a couple bucks, and if people buy them, great. But I think, let's be realistic, Americans aren't super interested in the sort of microtransaction for virtual crap craze like Asia is.
I was about to say, there is a standard for why people think this is a good economic model.
Everyone's salivating over Asia and how they sell them like little T-shirts for $1, and they want that. But I think American consumers aren't really into that.
But also, it plays a lot nicely on kind of, you know, using WoW as an example, that, you know, things you have accomplished, you have a way of kind of wearing them and showing them off. It is a little bit more effective than someone just checking all of your achievements.
Sure, it's like the Gold Cross in Call of Duty. It's like, I want to show people that I earned this.
Now, Brian, I imagine you just can't wait to dress up your avatar, because you seem very Avatar-oriented.
Depeche Mode shirt all the way. No, I mean, I think it's great. I love awards that I get. I've already purchased a $60 game, and I want to get stuff for my avatar. I have seen a lot of tweets from friends that are like, "Oh, look, a lightsaber for my avatar. Sure, it's $4, but it's a lightsaber." So I think there is a small market for those
They're
one-off
part of the
things.
problem.
There is, but yeah.
Man, I do not approve of such behavior.
Now, is this softening you to your rather hard stance
No.
against the avatars?
No,
All
that's
right.
absolutely not. I'm not conceptually against avatars in all cases, but I don't like that. They look like children. Like, I don't feel like it
Like bald
represents
children
me.
in my case. So
Like, and they're just so happy, and they're like, hey. I don't know. I just don't feel like they have any
They're
edge
family
or
friendly.
any.
I was kind
But
of.
I'm a grown up, and I don't want my avatar to be family friendly.
I would like to
Wow,
have the
what is
option
your
for mine
avatar
to
gonna
just
be
kind
doing?
of smoke maniacally or kind of just hunch over and kick objects on the ground
Yeah.
in frustration.
Making mine burp.
Now, Abby, I'm trying to get a sense of this. Did this also kind of break the news that there are these achievements that can be worn on your avatar? I mean, it's something that we kind of thought was possible.
Well, no, they've actually with NXE, they actually did. It says Avatar Awards. You scroll over one more and it says Avatar Awards, and for God, how many months now? It's just there's been nothing there, and really no news or hints. And Microsoft hasn't talked that much about it. They keep saying, "Oh yeah, it's coming, it's possible," but now is the first time this fall that we're actually starting to see games integrate it, which I actually think it's pretty cool because avatars are here to stay, whether you like them or not.
I don't.
And I would and I think they're fun, but actually just being able to earn kind of a visual trophy for what I've accomplished in the game, I actually do find that very exciting.
And for me, I wish I could just make my avatar naked, so just people can think, well, he hasn't
Either
done
of you
anything.
want family-friendly avatar.
I think you should just even earn any type of apparel. It's just kind of moving yourself out of the
Right,
virtual.
maybe you could earn nudity in a game.
Yeah,
Mass Effect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
Mass
unlocked the
Effect.
There you go,
censorship
Mass
blur.
Effect. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, there we go with news, which this was good. At least, especially with Modern Warfare 2, something happened this week. So go late October. You're like the World Series and Reggie Jackson. Now let's talk about our game of the week, which Brian, you actually did review, which is Borderlands.
Borderlands.
Just for some people, I think this game is actually far more popular than I had originally thought it might be due to 2K's, it seemed initially a rather anemic marketing campaign that seems to be ramping up. But what is kind of the simple synopsis of Borderlands?
Well, I mean, if you haven't been following it, it's Diablo with guns is the easiest way to describe it. It's randomized loot. You'll pick up guns that have random stat bonuses and effects, but the aiming is very FPS heavy. So you're actually shooting, you're aiming, you're going for headshots. It's not like Fallout 3 where it's VATS and you're doing dice rolls behind the scenes. This is a shooter first and RPG second.
And obviously a very interesting looking one. Brian, you gave it a 4 out of 5, which I think we should just point out was actually it was a very positive review. You just found some quirks in the game.
Yeah, I think people are quick to want to give things a 1 or a 5, and there's no room in between. It was either fun and it's a 5, or they didn't like it and it's a 1. But it's an amazing game. It's so fun co-op. But there are some issues, especially for the long-term enjoyment. I couldn't really see myself playing this over and over and over again. And for a game that is so designed to collect loot, like Diablo, like World of Warcraft, and other MMOs, there's some missing features that kind of, didn't go to 5.
Might just sweeten that deal. Now, I think we can all say, well, I'm about to get to you, Abby. Even in my playing it, there is something very compulsive about this game. And it is, I did a whole soapbox on how I actually find it relaxing because it just gives me this one thing I want to do over and over and over again. But Abby, you've been playing quite a bit of this as well. What's your take on it?
Well, the funny thing is, like, Fallout was kind of my go-to game last year, and I just kind of wanted to wander around by myself and do some things. And this, to me, is almost the opposite of Fallout. Like, Fallout is RPG, FPS, but mostly RPG, like, really based around RPG. And this one is, like, RPG and FPS, but really FPS.
Yeah, very FPS.
And that's so up my alley for that. I love Diablo. I love shoot and loot. That's kind of what this is. And I actually, even though it's a co-op game, I will wander around by myself and play for hours and hours. And I don't actually quite agree about the replayability because I now have like a level 30-something Siren. I have a level 24 Hunter. I'm looking forward to going back and playing all of the classes, the special abilities. It really actually gives me a good reason to go back. And that whole the thing that you shoot for, like in Mercs 2 or something, where, oh God, something really spectacular just happened. And I know if I play again, something totally different and spectacular will happen. The animations when you shoot people and they just melt or explode is phenomenal. I know I'm so clearly delighted by this game.
Yeah,
but I
it's very
can't stop
evident.
playing.
Well, I mean, the minute there's like there's like fire damage. I mean, there's like so many of these things that are common parlance in RPGs that they've managed to add into the shooter, like, you know, like different kinds of damage and shields that are resistant to certain kinds of damage. That just makes me happy. If you're not a huge RPG player, if you're not like a World of Warcraft player and you're not really familiar with these concepts, it's not going to hurt you. But for somebody who loves it, I'm like, nature damage is so exciting to me.
Well, and what I find so impressive about it is that those additions you can get to weapons or to your character, they feel very material in the game. I think the one that stands out to me that's so shocking is that, you know, you see these myriad weapons in the game that have, you know, an accuracy rating, and you can really tell the difference in a very real-time aiming manner. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that replicated in a shooter.
Yeah, I mean, it just hasn't for any shooter that isn't super realistic, and it's just like, you are not accurate with this gun for whatever reason, or the Deus Ex, like, until you are proficient with a pistol you can't shoot it.
Yeah,
but
it's a little more forgiving than
yeah,
that.
yeah, it's a lot more forgiving than that.
But the reason that the replayability kind of goes down for me is that toward the end of the game, the itemization kind of drops off. And what it is, you know, I don't think they do enough with the itemization, because at no point do they combine two elements. At no point do you see stat bonuses that hadn't appeared 10 levels before. It just kind of drops off midway through the levels. And that was what kind of did it for me on the replayability, because I want the loot to keep evolving. It's a little different for something like World of Warcraft, where they're adding new content every 2 weeks, every month. And there's something to go for. There's new dungeons, there's new encounters. And yeah, there will be DLC, but we don't know what that is yet.
At the very least, though, I think there's a very, very strong foundation for them to be building on it. So I think the mere fact that they made the announcement of the DLC so soon, or I think it was actually prior to the game's release.
It was like 2 or 3 days before
that,
the game
like,
came
it
out.
actually, it does. I think for me, yeah, my investment in the game is a little bit more peaked now, knowing there's more stuff coming.
And the other, I think the really high point of the game is the voice acting is just awesome. Patricia Tanis, you keep picking up her journals as you progress through the world. It's really, it makes the whole storyline just so engaging. Like, I've started really to enjoy her character and enjoy picking those up, and they get really twisted and weird. And I don't think off the bat, before I had actually really seen the game, I expected the world to be as engaging as it is. I'm like, you know, Badlands, deserty stuff. And they've done just really fun, weird things to make it like there's kind of like a Mad Max Thunderdome, and like, it's pretty awesome.
But it's not post-apocalyptic. I mean, I think that's the one thing. And because I think we all just can't somehow help but use Fallout in the sentence to talk about Borderlands.
They have those like the sort of weird abandoned towns, you know what I mean? Like that are all claptrap, and as soon as you see the sort of corrugated siding, you're like, oh, Fallout.
It's kind of more like Star Wars. It's like a kind of like a more like original Star Wars. It's kind of like a broken down and kind of rusty world, but it's also incredibly futuristic.
It was never nice, as Fallout implies. Obviously, once was with Washington D.C. It was just kind of barren. They built up some crap, and they're like, that's good enough. Okay, there we go.
I think the Fallout more refers to the kind of, as I said, it's the opposite of Fallout to me.
Right.
So.
I do want to talk about the art style, because this did become, I wouldn't say a huge piece of controversy, but this is one of those things that, coupled with all the furor surrounding Diablo 3 and many games that go to a more stylized look, I love it. I think it works best in, I guess, cel-shaded. I hate using that term, but it seems to be one of the most effective uses of it.
Yeah, I think it looks great. Initially, when they announced the Switch, because I had liked the old look of Borderlands, the dark, moody type thing, and I was like, oh, well, it's cel-shaded. But after playing it, I love the art style. I think it was the right decision to do. It helps it stand out from all the other shooters out there.
The colors in it are beautiful.
Yeah, and it helps it stand out from Fallout.
I mean, you know, sort of the dark, the grays and the browns, like, they're out now, you know, and they realized that they had a brown game and they needed to do something to, like, brighten it up a little bit.
Now, this, I guess, kind of goes back to our Modern Warfare 2 discussion. What is the impact of this kind of stylized look on the violence? Because, I mean, it's a very violent game, but it's not one that necessarily is as visceral or as in your face when you're popping off heads.
I think that we're inured to cartoon violence because we watched so many horribly violent cartoons when we were children. So you're like, oh, it's a cartoon. It's not violent.
Yeah, it's almost funny the way, like, people, as I said, would, like, melt in front of you, and at the same time you're like a little bit awed because it looks really amazing. It's kind of colorful and fun. It's like fireworks.
Yeah, it is. It's, you know, like the Ralph Bakshi cartoons I was discovering when I was probably far too young to be discovering them. I still love that sense of thrill. Like, yeah, it looks like a cartoon, but you're doing all the wrong things you're supposed to be doing.
Still lighting a guy on fire.
Sure.
Co-op, I think, is also, as you pointed out, really one of the highest points of this game. Is this putting to rest some of the problems that we've seen with 4-player co-op being implemented in games in the past?
Well, here's a game that was designed for co-op. It wasn't a game that co-op was sort of shoehorned into, like Resident Evil 5. This is designed to be played with other people, and it works because the enemies get stronger, the loot gets better, the classes' abilities work together, and it's just tons of fun.
Yeah, the only problems that I've really run into with co-op, is, especially if you have a few level difference between the people that you're playing with, sometimes you're like, well, why can't we do this mission together? Why can't we're ineligible to do this one? Or it makes it very easy to power level some lower level characters. And at the same time, you're still in one person's game, and sometimes you have that person that's lagging or the person that's really far ahead, depending on how much your friends play or how much time they have. And, I've had a few moments of frustration with that, and then having to go, okay, no, you start the game. I'll start in your game now. And,
It seems like the co-op, as opposed to maybe co-op as we've seen in some other games, that it really needs to be made to be played with friends, where you kind of arrange your own house rules of how you want to go about doing it, that it isn't just go find a random guy.
Yeah.
There's a few missing features that sort of take it away from, I'll just find some, 3 other people online. Like, you have to be in the same zone in the game, and if one person initiates travel, everyone else is coming along for the ride. So it's a great game for griefing if you want to. Unless you're in a menu. So if you see someone initiate travel, hit your menu real quick. There's no trade window. There's no way to show an item to somebody without dropping it on the ground. Like, these are, for a game so focused on loot, it's just sort of weird features that didn't make it. Hopefully, and Gearbox has said they're going to support the game based on what fans want. I think that's one of the biggest wants. Trading, item sharing, things like that.
I love the idea of how much trust you have to have, which, if we were in a very cartoon-looking, slightly demented world on a far-flung planet, you would have to put it on the ground and just hope that guy's going to put his stuff on the ground as well. So, now, Morgan, to Brian's point about that this was clearly initially the 4-player co-op game. I mean, is this really probably the only way that we're going to see 4-player co-op in major games? That you can't work on the single player first and then try to figure out how to expand that to the 4-player co-op, where it actually really works.
So you're saying like that this game initially was conceived of as
4-player co-op.
As a 4-player co-op. I mean, we've seen different approaches to this. Like in Resistance, of course, we saw like the co-op modes being
that's
even
outside
a
of the
totally
game.
separate experience than the first-player game. I mean, that's definitely one way to go about it and to kind of solve this problem. I think they're cramming a lot of 4-player co-op into games right now.
Because, I mean, as you know, in ODST, it's fun to play with 4-player co-op, but they've made the sacrifice on sort of the integrity of the storyline to be able to accommodate that. And I don't know if I go back and forth in my mind,
Well, I mean, I feel like developers are going to get better in the future at making single-player campaigns that can be co-opted for these like 4-player co-op campaigns. It's just, we're still learning how to do it. I mean, for a while, it was 2-player co-op was standard, and nobody had 4-player co-op. And now that we're able to do 4-player co-op, I think sort of the overarching level design for these games is going to have to change a little bit.
I think, co-op is the new multiplayer. It's sort of something developers are including to include it and have it on the back of the box. And maybe not everyone should be doing co-op. I mean, with Modern Warfare 2... we talked to those guys over at Infinity Ward, and they initially were going to do co-op in the single-player game, but they just found out that it didn't really work for the immersion and the action experience they were trying to tell. So they made all these Spec Ops missions and presented them as a separate 2-player co-op mode.
Mm-hmm. And it really is more value.
Do that.
I mean, it's a lot more game for the player out there.
But I really do enjoy having the opportunity to play a single-player game through with a friend, even if it's not optimized for it. I still really do like that option.
I mean, it's an interesting point. I mean, for what we want, do we always need to have it perfect, or if we just get it in a functional way, but not with all the necessary kind of level of polish we would expect from a single-player campaign?
I really like playing shooters with my brother, and I really want to be able to run through the game with my brother, and I don't really care if it's like the perfect experience. We're probably having a couple beers anyway.
It's a very good point. Very, very, very good point.
Me too.
I'm not concerned about that enemy was a little too easy to kill. You're like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it really depends on the game for me. I mean, you brought up Resident Evil 5. For me, those games are very much single player experiences for me. I think anything that really goes into the realm of horror and scary stuff, like if Fear had 4-player co-op, why would you care? It's like, well, why am I scared? I got 3 of my buddies in the room with me. I think it's choosing the kind of game that you add co-op to. And for Borderlands, it's perfect.
All right. Well, with that, I think we can all say the Borderlands inexperience Yes, dibble, dabble, play with your friends, go, be merry. Okay, let's do a reader question of the week that's nowhere near as volatile as the one that we had last week that I elicited some wonderful comments on our message boards, and we're just going to leave it at that. Brian, let's have our new inquiry.
So the reader question of the week is from Ninja Jordy, and he asks, now that DJ Hero has been released now, and the music game genre continues, I wanted to know if the genre is just a fad, and will it fade away in a few years, or is it here to stay permanently, and will they keep making us buy new peripherals to take up closet space?
I think they'll keep making us buy them as long as we're going to buy them.
Yeah, that's it.
Now, I guess the idea of it's a fad. How many years does something need to be in existence where it moves out of faddom? Like it stops being the zygote and actually becomes a living
rhythm
child.
Games are not new, and they weren't new with Guitar Hero.
Right.
They were newer to an American audience. But they're not new. It's not a new fad. It's not a new trend. It's something that'll probably be around for, as long as people keep buying them. And I'm still going to go back and play Rock Band 10 years from now,
Well, but people might get bored of this specific incarnation of music games, but I don't think they're going to get bored of hitting buttons in time to music. We love that.
Yeah.
Well, also, and music will keep evolving.
Right.
Well, in theory. I don't think it's done anything in the past 15 years. But, I mean, it is interesting that, as you said, the usual things that propel new iterations of games, which is technology and new hardware, isn't the same thing for a music game because it is more dependent on just getting the thrill of getting to play your songs.
Yeah, and I mean, the peripherals will die down. The games, you don't have to. DJ Hero, I mean, of course, you do have to buy.
It's got its built-in anti-piracy measure.
Yeah, but it's true. But the Guitar Heroes of the world, the Rock Bands of the world, you don't have to buy new equipment anymore for it. You should probably have at least 3 or 4 of those guitars stashed away in a closet somewhere.
I find them in
if you're
my
me,
closets.
9, Yeah.
I'm like, I forgot I had. What system is this? What is this? Oh, the PlayStation 2.
Now, to the second half of his question, are they going to try to get us to buy more peripherals? Outside of even music, Activision doesn't just have DJ Hero; they're going to have Tony Hawk Ride at the end of this year. I mean, they seem to be going whole hog.
Dangerous peripheral ever made.
I mean, already there's analysts who are saying that DJ Hero is going to really undersell what was originally anticipated. Do you think it's more because of the peripheral and the price tag that comes with it, or is it just the game in and of itself?
I think that the price tag for this game is incredibly high. Whereas you can buy Rock Band, it's a social experience. You get a lot more instruments. You feel like you get a lot more equipment for not that much more money.
And not to mention that there's already a DJ game on the market. It's called an iPod. If you've been to New York, about how many hundreds of people call themselves DJs now because they own an iPod?
Yeah, it's true.
All of them. So we've already kind of given people the tools, I mean, especially through laptops and all of that to, kind of be their own DJ anyway. I think the appeal is, of course, some of the tracks in the game, the difficulty, the fact that it's a game. Like I try to remind people whenever they try to tell me, like, why don't you try to learn real guitar instead of being really good at Guitar Hero? And I'm like, oh, God, if I have this argument one more time, I'm going to shoot someone. I can say that on here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can shoot. Yeah.
Not anyone specific. But
I mean, now if you go and shoot them, this might be really bad in court.
Okay, but it's a game.
Yeah. Now, Brian, I mean, are we looking at the waning age of the peripheral, not so much the music game?
I hope not. I mean, Natal and Sony's motion controller and Wii Motion Plus are great for certain things, but I could not imagine doing a music game with mocap through Natal or waving a wand around. Like, I need that peripheral. I need some sort of emulation of a real instrument for a music game. As far as peripherals in general, I think the companies are trying to get away from them.
Yeah, I mean, I think later in November when Tony Hawk Ride comes out, which I think is many people are treating with a great deal of skepticism, that we're going to have a much better sense about that.
I'm just not that coordinated.
Yeah.
No.
I'm not. That's why I play games.
I mean, life is so dangerous that once I'm inside that room with the couch and the television, I just want that to be the one safe space. It's like Left 4 Dead.
I don't want to get
That's my safe house.
on a slippery piece of plastic on my floor in front of my incredibly expensive glass television.
At the very least, if you're going to do it, make sure that there's a camera set up. All right, guys. Well, I think we're going to wrap up this week's feedback. Once again, thank you very much, you guys, for being on board. Brian Leahy, Abby Heppy, and Morgan Webb. We will be back next week chatting about things that have yet to happen, things that we already know we're going to be chatting about, but want to maintain as a surprise. And look, maybe I'll lose my voice for it and make it all exciting and kind of, Clint Eastwoody. Anyway, thank you. Good night. Go do something.